Have you heard about MCP but don't know how it fits in Copilot Studio? Well, stay tuned because Nathan here is going to talk to us about it today. Let's get the show started. Welcome back to the Low Code Revolution show. My name is Elaiza. I'm a senior cloud advocate here at Microsoft, and today we have another guest from New Zealand, one of our Microsoft MVPs, Nathan Rose, who's going to talk to us today about MCP servers with Copilot Studio, in particular the Dataverse MCP. I'm now going to hand it over to Nathan Rose, who's going to go ahead and introduce himself. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thanks so much, Eliza. Kia ora. Hello to all of you. Thanks so much for having me along today. I am really excited to share the latest in AI integration using Model Context Protocol for Dataverse in Copilot Studio. But before we get into things, I want to take a quick trip through music history and talk about the sampling machine. So back in the late 1980s, there was a machine made by Akai called the MPC 60, and it changed music forever. So prior to this machine being invented, anytime an artist wanted to use a sample from another song or a different audio track in their music, they had to go and get a sound engineer and a mixing panel, and it was a complicated, expensive process. But when the sampling machine was invented, it combined a relatively low cost with an intuitive interface that allowed artists to easily take samples into their songs. It democratized the creation of music, and it was especially widely used in hip hop. In fact, whether or not you're a fan of hip hop, I guarantee that you have heard some of the most iconic songs that have been produced using the MPC 60 sampling machine. This is just a few of them. Now, you're sitting there thinking, Nathan, that's fascinating, but I came to learn about Dataverse MCP, so get to the point or I'm getting on with my day. And I want you to keep this big idea in the back of your mind while we're going through our time together. Innovation comes from breaking silos. So, just as we saw the sampling machine spark innovation in the world of hip hop, Dataverse MCP could spark the next AI revolution in the Power Platform. Well, kia ora, everyone. As Eliza said, I'm Nathan Rose. I am a functional architect at HSO based here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in business applications. And my mission is to unleash human creativity with low code and AI. And I absolutely love MCP. And by the end of our time together, you're going to love it as well. Now, a quick overview of what we're going to run through today. We're going to start out by exploring what MCP Server is. We'll talk about why this matters for everyone. We'll then see how it enables interactive and autonomous agentic AI. And then I'll get hands-on and I'll take you through some demo scenarios with Dataverse MCP. And we'll wrap things up with going through some key limitations and some Microsoft Learn resources. All right, what is MCP Server? Well, you've probably heard it explained as USB-C. What exactly does that mean? Well, it's a common standard between AI models and our applications and data. And this makes it easier to leverage AI in existing apps. So it democratizes the creation of AI-enabled applications and automations. Our agents, both interactive and autonomous, can now do stuff with natural language. This is the ultimate in low code. And it is to AI applications what the sampler was to music in terms of an intuitive interface, natural language, making it really easy to create new things. To quickly go through a visual explanation of what's going on with MCP, when a user, either yourself or an agent, has a prompt that goes to the large language model, the LLM deciphers it, works out what needs to happen, and when it needs to do stuff, it uses MCP Server and then calls the tools, APIs, and prompts that are available to it. So in our case, we're going to be going through Dataverse, where we'll see searching and creating and updating records. but you can do this with lots of other data sources as well, including Dynamics 365, M365 Outlook, and a lot of different tools across the Microsoft ecosystem. Once our MCP server has actioned what we need it to do in our application or our data source, it sends a message back to us, and we move on to the next step. Now, this is a hugely important development, and it matters for everyone, no matter what your role is, because firstly, low code as we've known it is changing. Config starts to become natural language. If you've used tools in Copilot Studio with your agents, you know what it is to have to configure things with the various tools. With MCP, we simply connect to Dataverse and we use natural language to do the rest. And we need to understand when to leverage this versus traditional low code tools. MCP doesn't replace things like agent flows by any means. Rather, it enhances what we're able to do in Copilot Studio. It is GA today, so Model Context Protocol is generally available with some caveats. The Dataverse MCP connector that I'm about to show you is still in preview. Um, and the Dynamics 365 MCP connections are in preview and expected to GA later this year. All right, well, let's get into the demo. So, what I'm going to take you through is firstly how to connect to MCP and Copilot Studio. It is really easy to do. Then we're going to take a look at an autonomous agent using Dataverse MCP and an interactive agent, that traditional Copilot chatting with the LLM type of scenario using Dataverse MCP. So let me pop out of the presentation and let's get into Copilot Studio. All right, this is a blank agent that I've created. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly take you through how to connect to MCP. So if we come here to Tools and add a tool, you'll see all of the various connectors that you've been used to if you've used tools in Copilot Studio before. But there's a new option here called Model Context Protocol. This is something that has come about in the last few months. And when we click on this, we see that there are a ton of options that are available to us, a bunch of MCP server connections that we can access in Copilot Studio. We're going to select the Dataverse one here. So we're going to click this and we're just going to click Add to Agent. Now, there is an option to add and configure. If you've used tools before, you know that you have to do some configuration around them. With MCP, you really don't have to do that. You just click Add to Agent. It's going to use my existing connection to Dataverse, and it's going to go ahead and add the tool, and we're ready to go. It is literally that easy. So let's move on to a autonomous agent scenario using Dataverse MCP. This is an agent that I created earlier this year based on some conversations that I had had with public sector clients. This is a demo that I created based on some of the things that they had told me. So, what's really common in public sector is you have contact centers that are taking inquiries from citizens and they struggle with capacity. There's often a lot more demand for getting questions answered, raising tickets, that type of thing. And so these public sector contact centers are quite resource constrained. Um, but what they found when they analyze their data is that firstly, a lot of the questions can be answered from existing knowledge resources. Many public sector organizations have extensive knowledge bases. And so being able to make those available to citizens through technologies like Copilot Studio means that we can get citizens answers faster. Then there's a lot of times where someone just needs an empathetic response, but they're not really asking for something in particular. There's not a ticket that needs to be created. We just need to send a nice response. And then there are times where we actually need to create a ticket. So what I did, this is the first iteration that I created, and it does three very simple things. Reads the incoming email, determines, can I answer this from my knowledge base? Can I create a case? Or do I just need to send an empathetic reply to this person? They're just having a bad day and I just need to send an empathetic response. Now, in the first iteration of this, I had to create 5 different tools in Copilot Studio to do this between M365 Outlook and Dataverse to be able to send my various responses, to look up look up contacts, create them, and then create a case with the contact that I've either created or found. So there was a considerable amount of configuration. Let's move into the MCP world with this same agent concept. So this is the next iteration of this agent that I've created, doing the same thing, monitoring citizen queries, and then responding from its knowledge, creating a case, or just sending an empathetic reply. But when we come here to tools, I only need to use two because I'm using the Dataverse MCP server and the M365 email MCP server. So 5 tools went down to 2 using Model Context Protocol. When we come back here to the agent instructions, you'll notice that these are a bit different than the first iteration of the agent. They're a bit more complex. There's a bit more detail in them because I don't need to configure tools anymore. I can just use natural language to have my agent do things. I'll give you my favorite agent configuration tip. What I do is I write out what I want the agent to do. And then I go to GitHub Copilot and I ask it to do 3 things for me. First thing I ask it to do is make sure that my instructions are clear. As humans, we can sometimes be a little ambiguous in the way we communicate. And so I ask it to make sure that I'm being absolutely clear and unambiguous. The second thing I ask it to do is fill in any gaps. If there's something that I've missed in terms of when I'm creating a record or looking up a record or something like that, I ask it to fill in those gaps. And then the third thing I ask it to do is to optimize my instructions for token usage. I've had a few times with agents where I've exceeded the token allowance just because my instructions were kind of clunky. And so that's my favorite agent configuration hack, is to use GitHub Copilot with your instructions. If you don't have GitHub Copilot, M365 Copilot also works really, really well. So that's my autonomous agent. Let's go ahead and give this a test. So I've got an email that I've sent in. So come here to my mailbox. And there's an email that I've sent in saying that I need to report broken glass in the changing room at the swimming pool. It's a hazard that needs to be fixed. So this is something that we would expect to create a case in Dataverse. We can't answer this from our knowledge, so we expect to create a case. Let's come back here to our agent and let's run the test. When I run this, what's going to happen is it's going to run through its tool set. So it's determined it needs Dataverse, and so it's listing all the things that it can do in Dataverse. These are all the various tools it has. It's looking through its knowledge to determine whether it can answer this from its knowledge. And in this case, it has determined that it can answer this from its knowledge. I wasn't expecting that. What I'll do is I'll come over here and show you what it has done previously. So I've created this table called MCP test tables as a custom table. I had some issues getting a contact into the customer column with natural language. Was a little bit of a challenge, but this is one that I created a few hours ago, and you can see that it's given it a title, it's connected it to a contact, and it's popped the content of the email in. So when you're using tools like MCP and Copilot Studio, it is slightly more non-deterministic than if you were using something like Power Automate. So there are times, like as we just saw, where the agent will determine that actually I can answer this question and not necessarily create a case, but this is the case that it's created. We'll try it one more time and then we'll move on. Let's try this one more time. Let's see if it creates it for us.
I was crossing my fingers there in case he didn't see
Yeah,
you.
cross our fingers and toes. Let's see. Okay, so it's looking up. There we go. It's looking up the contact and it's creating a table, test table. Now, sometimes this surprises me in really cool ways. When I tested this morning, it created that row in Dataverse, but then it also sent me an email saying that it had done it, even though I hadn't told it to do that. So Some of the things that I love about AI is that it will say, hey, I think this is the next logical thing that I need to do, and just go and do it, even if you haven't explicitly told it to, which is really, really cool. So it's going and creating that table. Let's come back here to customer service and take a look. And it's just done that. So it's done what we expected this time. It's created that row for us with the contact and the content of the email. So that's how you can use it to create rows in Dataverse. Look up contacts and then take inputs from email and go and create a row in Dataverse. If I come back here to my mailbox, I'll just show you the email that it sent me. So it sent me a note just thanking me for reporting the broken glass and that it's logged my ticket, even though I hadn't told it to do that. So, really, really cool to see the agent trying to create a great customer experience, even with things it hasn't been explicitly told to do. All right, the last thing we'll go through is the interactive agent. So, this idea of more that traditional chat with an agent. And so what I've done is I've created what I'm calling this quote builder. This is based on some conversations that I had with a customer a few years ago who was using Dynamics 365 sales. And one of the issues they had was their quotes had lots and lots and lots of products that they needed to associate to them. So it was taking their salespeople quite a bit of time to produce quotes. And so last year, a colleague and I built a POC on this concept using Copilot Studio, but we used semantic kernel behind the scenes to power this. Now, semantic kernel is very much a pro code way of addressing this. With Model Context Protocol, I was able to replicate most of this in a low code way, which is really, really cool. And so this is the instructions for my agent. So what it does is it's going to go and create an opportunity in Dynamics Sales. And so this is the contact and the account that I've specified. I've hard coded that just to keep things simple for now, as it is very much a POC. It then creates an opportunity. I'm using a PowerFX expression here to generate a random number just so that we get a bit of variation in the title. Then it's going to look for the product that I've asked for and the quantity, and it's going to create the opportunity product and link it to the opportunity. So let's go ahead and give this a try. I'll just grab my prompt here, and I'm going to ask it to create an opportunity for 2 barista lights. So it's going to call Dataverse MCP, searching through its sources. It's now getting details on the various tables, creating the opportunity. And let's try that one more time.
So while you're trying that one more time, of course, Dataverse NCP is still in preview. So
Yep.
recommendation is to try this in a developer environment. Don't try it in your live environment. Experiment and explore with it.
Yep. It is very, very cool. Here we go. It looks like it's doing it now. So it's looking up the contact and the account. And looks like I've hit a limit on orchestration. I'll just come over here to Dynamics Sales and show you the one that I've created earlier today. So you can see that when it does cooperate, it creates my opportunity with the random number generated by PowerFX. It's linked to the contact, it's linked to the account. And when I come here to the products, it's created the product with the quantity specified as an opportunity product. So early days with it, but there is a lot of potential in terms of the AI applications that we can do with Dataverse MCP. So let's give it one more try, Eliza. What do you say?
Yeah, they say third time's the charm. So let's give it a
Yep,
go.
let's give it one more shot. Let's see how we go. So it's crunching on it, going through all of the tools that it has access to, looking up contacts and accounts, and creating an opportunity, and looking up the product and the opportunity product. And all right, and it's done it. So we'll come over here to dynamic sales. I'll quickly refresh, and you can see the record that we've just created. So same details as before, same contact, same account, and you can see the product with the quantity specified, all created with natural language using Dataverse MCP in Copilot Studio. And so that's the demo that I was going to take you all through today.
Yeah. What I liked about this, Nathan, if we just pause here, is that
Yep.
with your prompt, it was able to understand that, as well as at the Dataverse level underneath the hood, recognize what the the relationships were at an entity or table level, and it
Yep.
knew that it could create the product line item, which is a one-to-many relationship to the opportunity table,
Yep.
to yeah, fulfill the request. So it's very, very, very impressive. And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
as Nathan has showed today, go and explore this yourself. If it doesn't work, the first time, give it another chance and
Try
see how
again.
you go. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
And
Nathan, is
Eliza, if I
there?
could just share a
Oh,
quick
yeah, sure.
story on something I tried with it. So I had a question from someone about choice columns in Dataverse. And at the moment, they're not supported with Dataverse MCP. But when I was trying it, watching Dataverse MCP try to solve the problem was amazing. So it went through and said, okay, I'm going to update this. Oh, it looks like it needs a Navcar max. Let me format it as that. Oh, that didn't work. Let me search other values in this Dataverse environment to see what I'm missing. Oh, you were too lazy to send any, so I can't find any to reference. Let me go search the SDK. And watching it do that was so exciting. Watching it break the problem down the way a human would was really, really cool.
Yeah, there's one word for that. It's relentless.
Yeah.
But yeah. So is there any limitations that our viewers should be aware of today?
Yeah, great question, Eliza. So, a few considerations that you'll want to go through when you're using Dataverse MCP. Firstly, in terms of security, that is built into it in Copilot Studio. So, it respects the security roles of the user who is either interacting with it in a chat setting or triggering it agentically. So if you have access to a table, you can your agent will work. If you don't, it's not going to let you do it. Or if you only have access to records that you own, it's not going to let you search or update or create records that in tables that you don't have access to or records that you don't own, just depending on your level of security permissions. The big question at the moment is around governance. So the product team are definitely looking at this in its current preview state. The Dataverse MCP connector has access to all of the tables in Dataverse and all of its tools. So describing the table, searching, updating, creating, and so we're all thinking about what does this look like for GA in terms of governing the tables it has access to and what tools we allow. So definitely be aware of that. I will note that if you wanted to do this in production today, you could create a custom Dataverse MCP server and specify the tables and tools that you wanted to access. And then in terms of use cases, as we've seen, this is less deterministic than tools like Power Automate. So as we saw in the demo, there are times where we would have expected to create a case where it thought it could answer from its knowledge. And so you want to really consider your process and the end goal from it in terms of how deterministic is this? Are we do we care if the agent interprets things a little differently versus no, it must run this way every time. So those are some of the considerations. A quick comparison in terms of the various MCP servers. So the Dataverse one is still in preview, and this lets you access all the tables with all of the tools it has available to it. The Dynamics 365 customer engagement ones, so sales, service, and contact center, are have a bit more of that governance built in. They only access specific tables within Dataverse, and they have specific tools that they use on those specified tables. And these are expected to GA later this year. The last thing I'll leave you with, Elaiza, is just some Microsoft Learn resources. So there's some great resources on Microsoft Learn for connecting to MCP in Copilot Studio. This is the exact URL, and the Dataverse MCP connector as well.
Well, thanks, Nathan. We'll put the links in the video description for our viewers. And yeah, thanks again, Nathan, for coming to the show and talking to us about the Dataverse NCP with Copilot Studio. I really liked the tip that you shared earlier with putting your instructions and trying it out in GitHub Copilot. That was a good tip. And yeah, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.